You're listening to the Paranormal Peeps on the Darkcast Network. Come to the dark side of indie podcasts with the Darkcast Network.
We have cookies. Between the realm of the dead and the journeys of the living, join Josh, Jamie, and Elisa as they delve into the vast world of the paranormal and breathe life back into the history of the departed.
Witchcraft, the occult, extremist beliefs, murder. Tune in to Rogue Darkness each Friday and join host Raven as I uncover horrific crimes committed under the misconceptions and misunderstandings of witchcraft and other belief systems. I'll cover a wide range of crimes involving ritualistic killings and extremist beliefs to cult persuasion and supposed possession. Anything and everything that borders the line of horrifying. There's always three sides to a story. Side A, Side B, and then the truth. Let's uncover the truth together and explore the darkness of mankind, one crime at a time. Available wherever you get your podcast fix, simply by searching Rogue Darkness.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. I'm Elisa.
I'm Jamie.
And I'm Josh.
And today we have a fun episode talking about the Bermuda Triangle. Dun dun dun!
The most scary 500,000 square miles of ocean.
I've never been there.
Me either.
Neither have I.
So I'll take your word for it.
That's where, so every year for my family, I shouldn't say every year, we've only been doing it recently, but I asked the kids, okay, do you want to go on a family vacation for Christmas or do you want to have presents? And this last year they were like, I want to go on a cruise through the Bermuda Triangle.
Josh and I actually were going to go on a cruise through the Bermuda Triangle.
We were. And then it got canceled.
Well, COVID hit.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
So they refunded our money and that was it.
Aw, lame. Maybe you could have been one of these stories.
Ooh.
So the Bermuda Triangle has 3 chapters: plane crashes, shipwrecks, and ghost ships, where the ships are missing their entire crew. The ships are there, but the people aren't.
Which is kind of freaky in itself.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start off. Let's start off with plane crashes.
Okay. So let's go on to the famous Flight 19. So Flight 19 undertook a routine navigation and combat training exercise in a TBM type aircraft. The assignment was called Navigation Problem Number 1, a combination of bombing and navigating that other flights had completed or were scheduled to undertake that day. The flight leader, the United States Navy Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor, had about 2,500 flying hours, mostly in an aircraft of this type, while his trainee pilots each had 300 total and 60 flight hours in the Avenger. Taylor had completed a combat tour in the Pacific theater as a torpedo bomber pilot on the aircraft carrier USS Hancock, and had recently arrived from the NAS Miami, where he had also been a torpedo bombing plane instructor. They're called VTBs. You would think it would be P, but it's not. VTB. The student pilots had recently completed other training missions in the area where the flight had taken place. They were U.S. Marine Captain Edward Joseph Powers and George Williams Stivers, U.S. Marine Second Lieutenant Forrest James Gerber, and USN Ensign Joseph Tipton Bossy. Each aircraft was fully fueled, and during pre-flight checks, it was discovered they were all missing clocks. Navigation of the route was intended to teach dead reckoning principles, which involved calculating, among other things, elapsed time. The apparent lack of timekeeping equipment was not a cause for concern. It was assumed that each man had his own watch. Takeoff was scheduled at 13:45 local time, but the late arrival of Taylor delayed departure until 14:10. The weather at NAS Fort Lauderdale was described as favorable, sea state moderate to rough. Taylor was supervising the mission, and a trainee pilot had the role of leader out front. The exercise involved 3 legs, with the flight having flown 4, the 4th being returned to NAS Fort Lauderdale after reaching the Florida coast. After taking off, they flew out heading out 91 degrees, almost due east, for 56 nautical miles, until reaching Hens and Chicken Shoals, commonly called Chicken Rocks, where low-level bombing practice was carried out. The flight was to continue on that heading for another 67 nautical miles before turning into a course of 346 degrees for 73 nautical miles, in the process overflying Grand Bahama Island. The next scheduled turn was then heading 241 degrees to fly 120 nautical miles, at the end of which the exercise was completed and the Avengers would turn left and then return to the NAS Fort Lauderdale. Radio conversations between the pilots were overheard by the base and other aircraft in the area. The practice bombing operation is known to have been carried out because at about 1500 hours, a pilot requested and was given permission to drop his last bomb. 40 minutes later, another flight instructor, Lieutenant Robert F. Cox, who was forming up with his group of students for the same mission, received an unidentified transmission. An unidentified crew member asked Powers, one of the students, for his compass reading. Powers replied, "I don't know where we are. We must have gotten lost after that last turn." Cox then transmitted, "This is FT-74. Plane or boat calling Powers. Please identify yourself so someone can help you." The response after a few minutes was requested from others in the flight for suggestions. FT-74 tried again, and the man identified as FT-28, or Taylor, came on. T-28, this is FT-74. What is your trouble? Both of my compasses are out, Taylor replied, and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I am overland, but it is broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down, and I don't know how to get to Fort Lauderdale. FT-74 informed the NAS the aircraft were lost, and then advised Taylor to put the sun on his port wing and fly north up the coast to Fort Lauderdale. Base operations then asked if the flight leader's aircraft was equipped with a standard YG or IFF transmitter, which could be used to triangulate the flight's position, but the message was not acknowledged by FT-28. Later, he would indicate that his transmitter was activated. Instead, at 16:45, FT-28 radioed, "We are heading 30 degrees for 45 minutes. Then we will fly north to make sure we are not over the Gulf of Mexico." During this time, no bearings could be made on the flight, and the IFF transmitter could not be picked up. Taylor was told to broadcast on 4805 KHC. This order was not acknowledged, so he was asked to switch to 3000 KHC. The search had more rescue frequency, Taylor replied. "I cannot switch frequencies. I must keep my plane intact." At 1656, Taylor was again asked to turn on his transmitter for YG if he had one. He did not acknowledge, but a few minutes later advised his flight, quote, "Change course to 90 degrees due east for 10 minutes. About the same time, someone in the flight said, "Dang it. If we could just fly west, we could get home. Head west. Dang it." With some other choice words. This difference of opinion later led to question about why the students did not simply head west on their own. It had been explained that this can be attributed to military discipline. As the weather deteriorated, radio contact became intermittent, and it was believed that the 5 aircraft by this point had more than 200 nautical miles out to sea, east of the Florida Peninsula. Taylor radioed, "We'll fly 270 degrees west until landfall, or running out of gas," and requested a weather check at 1724. By 1750, several land-based radio stations had triangulated Flight 19's position as being within 100 nautical miles, radius of 29 degrees north and 79 degrees west. Flight 19 was north of the Bahamas and well off the coast of Central Florida. At 1804, Taylor radioed to his flight, quote, "Holding 270, we didn't fly far enough east. We may as well just turn around and fly east again." By that time, the weather had deteriorated even more and the sun had set. Around 1820, Taylor's last message was received. He was heard saying, quote, "All planes close up tight. We have to ditch unless landfall. When the first plane drops below 10 gallons, we all go down together." As it became obvious the flight was lost, air bases, aircraft, and merchant ships were alerted. A consolidated PBY, Catalina departed after 1800 hours to search for Flight 19 and guide them back if they could be located. After dark, 2 Martin PBM Mariner flight boats originally scheduling for their own training flights were diverted to perform square pattern searches in the area. The U.S. Navy Squadron Training Number 49 took off at 1927 from Naval Air Station Banana River, now Patrick Space Force Base, called in a routine radio message at 1930, and then was never heard from again.
So that's 2 flights.
Yes.
That are gone.
So it was 14 men on Flight 19, because each plane could fit 3 men, but each plane had 3 men, one had 2.
Right.
Then one of the rescue search planes had 13 men aboard. So 27 in all.
All were gone.
Jeez.
But then at 21:15, the tanker SS Gaines Mills reported it had observed flames from an apparent explosion leaping 100 feet or 30 meters high and burning for 10 minutes. Captain Shania Staley reported unsuccessfully searching for the survivors through a pool of oil and aviation gasoline.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, when I was watching Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates on Discovery, on the episode about it's like a 2-parter, they dove. They went out in a boat, sonar on the last coordinates that they knew that this rescue plane had went out with the 13 men. And they came across a debris field about half a mile long. They dove down there, and they were thinking it might be this rescue plane.
Right.
So they were down there, and because this prop plane had 3 propellers on each engine.
It was a big plane.
It was a big plane. And this is what they found down there. And then they were trying to count the cylinders, and there should have been 18 total, 2 rows, so 9 and 9. But it was so buried down on the ocean floor that they could not dig it out and confirm. So those things have to be raised before they can actually confirm that this could be the rescue plane.
Yeah, I watched another one where they were looking to see if in this field, because this scientist had triangulated where they could have gone.
Right.
And it was in this field. And it was like the Everglades. And so that would be hard to search. It's
sure
wet, right? And so he's like, normally I would, take suggestions lightly and kind of go with it, but where she's a scientist and she has studied this and whatever, they went and did a search and did a scan. So they had like this scanner go over the area and tell them what solid objects are in that area. And they found something, and they went over and they found a plane, and they dug it up. They found the box. They found a wheel. They found the back of the airplane in this like pit almost. And 2 weeks go by and they find out it is not the plane. It's from World War II. So,
which is the same era. Those bombers were from World War II.
It was not too long after World War II ended.
Yeah.
That they were doing this training flight.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it wasn't one of those planes that took off. But
because that actually happened too. Because like when Josh Gates when they were out looking for Flight 19, they found another flight. They found another plane.
Oh, did they?
They were doing they were doing sonar looking for the flight, and they found a plane under. They thought they found, because they found planes in that would have been in formation, and when they dove on it, they found different planes.
Are you sure? Because I didn't see that today when I watched it.
Yeah, it was one of them.
I don't think it was Bermuda Triangle.
Maybe it wasn't, but I remember them.
I know they were looking for a plane, but I don't think it was Bermuda Triangle.
It might have been. It might have been something different.
But I'm not sure.
But yeah, they haven't found. I mean, they still haven't found them. But
no.
The thing is the part that I think, the part that I don't understand is he kept trying to fly east. Like, why east? Like, if you knew you flew east to get to where you are now,
well, because
why are you still flying east?
Well, he thought he was going to be on the Florida Keys, and so he thought he was going to just go in that direction. He just wanted land. But what's weird to me is that the plane that came to rescue them was a seaplane. Like, it was one that can land on water.
Yeah.
So how did that one not make it when it can land on water?
Good question.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what doesn't make sense to me. That's why this whole Bermuda Triangle thing is like, like I know it's very, nowadays people are like, well, there's just a magnetic field that's 100 feet below ground. And it's, like they have like all these scientific reasonings for things, but there's still this mystery that comes with, well, what about this? This doesn't make sense. And I watched another video of people's experiences with the Bermuda Triangle. Some guys that are on board ships all the time. This is what they do, and they sail all the time. And they have friends that sail. And one of them was saying this green light came up out of nowhere, came up to their sailboat, and it came so fast, and it hovered right next to their sailboat, and their sailboat was going really fast, and then hovered around it and then took off.
Aliens.
And they were saying that they actually do see lights, like UFO lights
Going into the ocean.
going, and
coming
then
out.
Yep. And then they see them shoot across the sky and then shoot back. So it's not just scientific things that you can explain.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is I think Flight 19 is probably the most famous Bermuda Triangle incident.
Yeah.
But what was the first?
Well, the first isn't widely known. The first that we know of.
Yeah.
Okay. So it had to do with Christopher Columbus when he was trying to find passage to Asia.
Right, which was 1492.
1492. That's right.
Sailed the ocean blue.
That's right. So for those that don't know, the Bermuda Triangle is an area of water in the North Atlantic, and it runs from Miami to the San Juan, so Puerto Rico.
Yep.
Right. And then to Bermuda, and it forms that triangle. So that's about 500,000 square feet, right?
Not square feet.
Square miles.
Square miles, sorry. So that's 500 square miles.
500,000.
Should be easy to find them.
Right. 500,000 square miles.
Yes.
That's a lot of water.
Mm-hmm. So it started around 1492. Now, back then, sailors, especially Christopher Columbus, he kept a very detailed journal.
Right.
Okay, of his sailings and what they experienced and what they saw.
Captain's log, start date. Oh, wait, no. Sorry.
Yeah, so he sails through the triangle, and he kept very detailed journal. And on September 13th, 1492, he writes, and you can actually, and I thought this was kind of cool. They have an English, his journal translated into English that you can buy.
Oh, cool.
And read his journal. He's got like maps in there.
Ooh.
So you can actually go and purchase this and read this.
Cool.
We're doing it.
He writes in his journal that he's sailing through this triangle and something odd happens. He says, at the commencement of the night, the needles turn a half a point northwest. Then, again in the morning, they turn somewhat more northwest. So I'm not really sure what that means. I'm not a sailor, but it struck him as really odd. Like it shouldn't have been.
Well, yeah, normally, the reason why we have compasses is because the Earth's magnetic field is very stable.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get magnetic north, and then all of a sudden you're sailing, and it's like magnetic north now shifts a little bit, and then it shifts again.
Yeah.
Well, and that's going to take you way off course. That
Right.
little bit is going to shoot you in.
Somewhere else, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he also reported that the sea was rising, not like rising and falling like you expect a sea to do. He says it was rising, which is weird. And then he said there was a strange light that could be seen out in the distance of the water. And he said it was that like a candle going up and down. It looked like a candle light, candle flame. So, and he wrote this
And was
all
this
in his,
at night?
Yeah.
So do you think this could be like
Ghost light?
Native Americans that...
Well, he does not specify whether it was during the night or during the day.
Huh. Well, I wonder,
I'm guessing it was,
But he's in the middle of the ocean.
yeah. I don't know.
is he in the middle of the ocean though?
He doesn't say.
Well, he's in the triangle.
He's in the triangle.
Which means he's not near land because he didn't land in that area. So he's still beyond. So yeah, that's weird. Wow, who knows?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking maybe it was a fire that the Native Americans were having.
Be a
Maybe-
really large fire though, because
It would have to be.
you
to be
can't
able to
see land.
it.
Well, no, think about this. What if it's like a foggy night or something like that? Just use your imagination. Or what if this is at night? Because he doesn't say day or night.
No, he doesn't.
And like when I am driving on the freeway, in Utah, we have mountains that are surrounding us, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I'm driving on the freeway, I can see when someone has a campfire on a mountain. I can see it.
Yeah, you can see light. You can see that type of light
So
for quite a ways.
yeah, so that makes me wonder. Maybe it's not a foggy night because maybe fog is not something that you're going to be able to see it through. but maybe it's something that they saw. I don't know.
We could speculate a lot of things, but unless we were there, it's kind of hard to say anything, you know.
Right. Next Essie's method, grabbing Christopher Columbus.
Right? Okay, so in 1606, a U.S. ship carrying 150 travelers sailed through the Triangle. They wrecked after encountering a unusually huge hurricane, right?
Oh, that'd be so scary.
So
No
why
kidding.
this occurrence isn't consistent or considered anything out of the ordinary or strange, it is how it left a lasting impression on people and how they felt about this body of water. So that just added to the whole, this is not a good area to be in.
This is not safe.
This is not safe. There's something wrong with this area.
Well, yeah, you got to imagine, if Columbus goes through it, has some issues, reports it, right? And then, 100 years later, a ship gets lost from a hurricane. Obviously, it's this place is dangerous because you don't know what you're going to run into. And they obviously didn't have hurricane forecasting back then.
No.
Well, and they have what they call rogue waves,
Yes.
Yes.
which
Yes.
are really intense and random.
Yeah, and I got some stuff on that. here, too.
Perfect.
So then the next one is 1881. A ship that is sailing from Liverpool to New York City, right? And the people on board claim to see a ghost ship while going through the Bermuda Triangle.
So this is the question I asked you when you said this, right?
Yes.
I know the angle of things. Liverpool is north and east, obviously, of New York.
Right. So it seems like, why are they? It makes no sense, right?
Right.
But here's the thing: they must have been stopping other places.
Well, I read part of this story, and they said the captain decided to divert it just for sightseeing purposes and to come back up.
Okay, well then he's a butthead. I don't know what to tell you.
Let's do a path that's got some real excitement to
Yeah.
it.
So this is kind of where the reports vary, as they usually do. Some of the passengers say that some of the crew members of this ship went aboard the so-called ghost ship. There was no signs of life. They couldn't find any people. But a storm, out of nowhere, came up and separated the ghost ship from this travel ship.
Yep.
Okay. They found their way back to each other the following morning. And when they went to try and collect their crew members, they had also disappeared with no trace.
And what I found interesting too was that their sails were up.
Yeah.
So how are they manning those sails? And they said one sail was up and flowing. The other one was ripped and torn.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah. Why? I mean, I have a theory on why people would just abandon ship, but it's just mind boggling to me to have, there's a lot of crew members on board.
Oh, yeah.
To have them all gone and disappeared.
No trace, no nothing.
And all of their stuff is still there.
Yeah, but the question remains, why? Why would they do
Yeah.
that?
I only have one theory. Do you want to
What's
hear
that? Yeah, absolutely.
it? Okay, so when you're out to sea, if you run out of water or whatever and you get extremely thirsty,
Yes.
there's lots of heat. And there's all this water around you, but nothing to drink, right? Mm-hmm. If you take one drink of that water, there is, I can't remember how many times more salt in there than your body can handle. I think it's 4 times
Yeah, you go crazy.
in one cup.
Yeah.
4 times more salt than your body can handle. Something to that effect. And your body starts to shut down and you start going crazy. And so you start thinking weird things and
Probably seeing weird things.
you see weird things it's documented fact that that's what your brain does. You go crazy.
Yeah.
And what if during this time, the waves come, the rogue waves come, or whatever happens. And generally when it's safer to stay inside the ship, your body naturally thinks, or your head is thinking, I need to get out of this ship.
Right.
I need to get out of here. And you jump ship.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of. But then to have every single one of them do that.
That's the part that I
That
find a
is
little harder to swallow. Every single
Yes,
one.
me too. I can see, okay, here's 5 of you on a boat.
Yes.
Jump ship. Maybe you're safer, and then you get out into the water and then you realize, okay, that was stupid.
Right.
I am not safer out here. Obviously, I'm going to die,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
but a whole ship?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Crazy, crazy. So now we kind of get to the 20th century, and this is where the Bermuda Triangle starts to really get a lot of attention, is in the 20th century.
I think that makes sense, though, because when you look at like the earlier times, right, information didn't travel as easily
as it does today.
As it does, because there's no TV, there's no newspapers, there's no radio. And now with all these inventions, these stories get out much
quicker
faster.
And spread a lot. Yeah, quicker. So this takes us to about February 1918. So one of the Navy's largest ship, the USS Cyclops, it was carrying 300 men from Salvador, Brazil to Baltimore, Maryland. Okay, so their route goes right through the Bermuda Triangle. So the ship never arrived in Baltimore, and even though they had the equipment, they never sent out a distress signal. Ever.
Jeez.
Okay, so now the USS Cyclops, I don't know how many people have seen this ship. It's different. Okay, it's built different. It's got like a flat bottom, but then there is a lot of exposed metal at the top because it hauled coal.
Okay, so it was a coal transport.
It was a coal transport, right? So, but on this particular trip, they were hauling manganese ore, which has a different density, meaning that weight distribution would be different.
Yep.
Okay. Now think about this. This ship is long. It's narrow.
Yeah.
And then you got all this metal above it.
Top heavy.
Top heavy, right? Not real stable. So if they got hit by a rogue wave, it would take them out. Now, what I found really neat is when I was watching Expedition Unknown, they had a scale model, like a smaller model of the USS Cyclops. And then they brought it to this place where they can make a rogue wave.
It's a wave simulator.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's so neat.
That's way cool.
So they go through and they're like, okay, let's hit it with these rough waves, like let's say 30-foot waves equivalent to, and the ship seemed to fare fine through it. Okay. Then they're like, okay, now let's kick up the wind to about 35 miles an hour. So they kick it up. They're like, now let's bring in the rogue wave. So they bring in the rogue wave, and that sucker goes down instantly.
Yeah.
When it's hit.
It sunk in a second.
Yeah. Gone. Gone. Now they never found any debris. Nothing. They don't know where it's at. They don't know anything. They never found nothing.
And you got to figure that's so hard. Like one of the reasons why people just don't get found when they go disappearing in the ocean is because it's the proverbial needle in a haystack.
Well, it definitely is.
You just don't know where it's at.
But what's really interesting is that the USS Cyclops had two sister ships, and I can't remember the names, but they were built in the same way, and they both sank too. Not in the Bermuda Triangle, but they both ended up on the bottom of the ocean.
Wow.
So it was more of a design flaw than anything.
Well, what I found interesting too is I was watching again on National Geographic, and they had people go down, or they had this one guy go down and investigate some of these ships down in the Bermuda Triangle, and they were split in half.
Yeah.
Clean cut. Split in half.
Isn't that weird?
Yes.
That's odd. There's definitely some odd, like, I think it's somewhere in the middle. There's some scientific explanation. And I think there's some things there's just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, you just like, how?
Well, and it was like rogue waves. Yes, it's a real thing.
Oh, absolutely.
But they're not common.
No, they are not.
So that's why it just kind of blows my mind that there's just so many incidences.
There's a lot.
But they found, like, I was watching something, we were talking about another shipwreck. Now, this didn't happen to be Bermuda Triangle. It happened in the Pacific Ocean. It was a Japanese ship.
Yeah.
And it went down with 300 or 600 people on board. And it went down so fast that none of the hatches were closed on the top side of the ship.
Oh, wow.
It was just that quick.
It was that quick.
There's no time.
Wow.
When the rogue waves hit, they hit so fast and so off normal that they'll take a ship down. And this happened, 50, 60 years ago. We're not talking, hundreds of years ago, and it just took them down so fast.
Yeah.
Right. So in this wave simulator, the rogue wave that they hit would have been equivalent to about an 84-foot rogue wave in the ocean.
Yeah. So when I was watching this documentary on the rogue wave, they were talking that they were 80 feet
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least, right?
Yep.
So, but for anybody that wants to like go and watch, it's a 2-part Expedition Unknown on Discovery with Josh Gates, and that would be season 8, episode 7.
And it's worth it.
It's worth it.
It was an amazing episode.
He's always got some comedy in there that's really funny, but they take a deeper look into all these different disappearances. They even cover Flight 19.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so, yeah, it's worth checking out.
Yeah.
There's another interesting fact that on one of the shows that I watched was that there were 1,600 ghost ships found in the Bermuda Triangle.
I
Ghost
believe
ships or wreckages?
Ghost ships
Wow.
That's
throughout
crazy.
time that has been documented.
Reported? Yeah. Wow.
So there's an interesting theory on the ghost ship part, though, too, right? Is that these ships actually sank. Like, they sank, people died, right? And the reason why they're up on the water again is that area has a lot of trapped methane
Methane gas.
Oh, yeah.
Underneath-
Push it back up.
underneath the surface or underneath the soil there. And so if there was a large enough gas release, it could lift up a ship. Also, they ran theories on it, and they actually sank a ship.
Right, because these pockets of methane gas, if they're big enough, can probably sink I would say, a good sized vessel. But they also found that the methane gas, when it rises up through the water like that, it changes the density of the water and creates like this suction that can pull it down.
Which, thinking about that now, right? Columbus said he saw the ocean rising.
Yeah, he said not rising and falling. He just said rising.
What if he was sinking? What if one of those methane bubbles hit the bottom of his ship?
Maybe.
And pulled it down. You're thinking things are going up.
But you're really going down.
But it
down. Probably wasn't a big enough pocket to
sink the ship.
Just to maybe pull him down a little further.
That's interesting to think about.
Yeah, that's a thought. Huh. Yeah.
That's cool.
This kind of reminds me of the Goonies.
I love the Goonies.
Where they see that ghost ship out there.
I would
yes.
love to see that. I've dreamt of that since I saw that movie.
We've got flights, plane crashes.
Yes, we do. Mm-hmm.
We've got ghost ships.
Disappearances.
And now we're going to go shipwreck.
All right. Let's have it.
So we're going to talk about the Carol A. Deering. The Carol A. Deering was a beautiful 5-masted schooner and had a very short life, sailing for just a few years before she was found completely abandoned on the Diamond Shoals of North Carolina in 1922. The mystery of what happened remains one of the maritime history's most famous ghost ship stories. The Carol A. Deering was built in Bath, Maine in 1919 by the G.G. Deering Company. For commercial use, it was named for the owner's son. The ship was 255 feet long, 44 feet wide, and weighed 1,879 tons.
Holy cow.
It was designed to carry coal at a capacity of 3,500 tons. She was the largest and the last ship ever constructed by G.G. Deering Company and one of the last wooden cargo ships ever built. So she was first launched on April 4th, 1919 in Bath. And after sailing for almost a year and a half, she was in excellent shape when she set sail for Norfolk, Virginia on August 22nd, 1920. Bound for Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. On board was an experienced captain, William H. Merritt. Merritt was a World War I hero. His son, Sewall Merritt, who served as the first mate, a crew of 10 men in a cargo hold filled with coal. However, just a few days later, Captain Merritt fell seriously ill, and the ship was turned back, landing at the port of Lewes, Delaware, where Merritt and his son disembarked. The Deering Company replaced the two with Captain Willis B. Wormel, a retired 66-year-old veteran sea captain, and Charles B. McClellan as the first mate. Once again, on September 8th, 1920, the ship set sail and made its way to Brazil, delivering the coal without incident. So they went south through the Bermuda Triangle. Captain Wormel then gave his crew some leave time, and while he was there, he visited another ship captain, an old friend named George Goodwill. Wormel had expressed concern to Goodwill about the crew on Carol A. Deering, stating that they were unruly and didn't trust them, except the engineer Herbert Bates. On December 22nd, 1920, Deering left Brazil and went to Bridgetown, Barbados, where it stopped for supplies. While there, Captain Willis Warmell spoke with Captain Hugh Norton of the August W. Snow and told him that he was having trouble with the crew, especially First Mate Charles B. McClellan, stating that he was habitually drunk while ashore and mistreated the crew. While they were there, First Mate McClellan got drunk and complained to Captain Norton that he could not discipline the crew without Captain Warmell interfering. He had to do all the navigation owing to Warmell's poor eyesight. That's not good for a captain.
No, you've got to have your eyes, people.
Later, Captain Norton, his first mate, and another captain, Herb McClellan, say, "I'll get the captain before we get to Norfolk. I will." At some point during his drunkenness, McClellan was arrested. This is not going good. However, Captain Warmell bailed him out of jail on January 9th, 1921, and the Deering immediately set sail for Hampton Roads, Virginia. On January 29th, 1921, the Deering passed by the Cape Lookout lightship of North Carolina and hailed it, reporting having lost both anchors and chains in a storm off Cape Fear. That's a horrible thing.
Cape Fear? No kidding. There's a movie called that.
Right. Where are you going? Going to Cape Fear.
That's not a good idea.
The man also asked that the ship's owner, the G.G. Deering Company, be notified. However, the lightship's keeper, Captain Thomas Jacobson, could not convey the message because his radio was out. So Captain Jacobson would later say that the man who hailed the lightship was a tall, thin man with reddish hair speaking through a megaphone. He also stated the man didn't act or speak like an officer as his speech was broken, and Jacobson took him for Scandinavian. Jacobson also noticed that the crew was milling around on the ship's quarterdeck, where they were usually not allowed. The next day, the crew of another vessel reported seeing Deering sailing a course directly onto the Diamond Shoals. In early morning of January 31st, the Deering was sighted by Captain C.P. Bradley, who was on lookout duty at the Cape Hatteras Coast Guard Station.
Been there.
Rub it in.
You're kidding. The vessel had run aground with all sails set on the outer edge of Diamond Shoals. Brady reported his findings, but rescue ships could not approach the Deering due to bad weather. It wasn't until January 4th that the ship could be boarded when a tugboat rescue crew, led by Captain James Carlson, went upon the Deering. The ship had been so battered it was taking on water. The crew found the vessel completely abandoned, and much of the equipment had been damaged. The steering equipment was disabled, the wheel had been shattered, the rudder disengaged from its stock, and the binnacle box stabbed in and broken.
What?
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they just stabbed with
Yeah.
with a pole.
I know, but
It was a mutiny, I tell you.
Yeah.
why?
A sledgehammer leaned ominously nearby.
Yeah, mutiny.
The ship's log and navigation equipment, the crew's personal effects, life rafts, and ship's 2 lifeboats were missing from the vessel. The latter was hanging over the side. Ironically, the galley looked as if food was being prepared when the vessel was abandoned. There were ribs in a pan, pea soup in a pot, and coffee on the stove.
You can't leave ribs like that.
No.
It's just blasphemous.
Wasteful.
Afterward, the ship was unsalvageable, pulled out into the ocean and dynamited. Some of the ship's wreckage washed ashore on Ocracoke Island, North Carolina.
Ocracoke.
Ocracoke,
That's where I got engaged.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
where it was remained visible for more than 30 years. The U.S. government immediately launched an extensive investigation that lasted until late 1922, but an official finding was never made on the incident. The weather was considered, especially hurricanes. Though powerful hurricanes were known to have been raging in the Atlantic, the Deering was moving away from them. The state of the ship indicated an orderly rather than panicked evacuation. The piracy was considered, and some believe that this was the cause, but no evidence was found to support the theory. Rum runners were also suspected, as the crew's disappearance occurred during Prohibition. This idea was primarily ruled out because the vessel was too large, conspicuous, and slow. Many suspected it was a case of mutiny due to Warmell's known conflict with his first mate. This idea is supported by the red-haired man who hailed the Cape Lookout lightship.
Who hailed a cab?
Yeah, who hailed the cab. Which was certainly not the captain. Senator Frederick Hale of Maine advocated his theory, stating it was a plain case of mutiny. Despite some evidence that this might have been the case, nothing definitive has ever been proven. It's also possible that once the Deering ran aground, the crew abandoned ship, took refuge in the lifeboats, and were swept out to sea. It's also possible that the crew of the Jeering was rescued by another ship in the area, the SS Hewitt, which was also lost with all hands at sea at the same time.
Wow.
In the end...
Someone needs to learn how to do the weather.
Right?
That's what I'll... They need to have one guy they just pay.
Just one. That's all you do.
Just what? You're the weather guy. And be right.
Yeah.
In the end, no sign or wreckage of the lifeboats was ever found, nor were any members of the crew or their bodies. Speculation as to the vanishing of the ship's crew continues to this day. And if you want to see some of the remaining pieces of the Carol A. Deering, including her bell and capstan, they're on display at the graveyard of the Atlantic Museum in Hatteras.
Wow. I don't know. When you were talking in my head, I keep seeing the word mutiny.
Well, you said it.
Yeah.
Like,
No, but that's why I said it, is because I kept seeing mutiny, mutiny, mutiny.
It's definitely setting up in the mutiny piece. But here's the thing, though. If they committed mutiny, right, and they got off the boat or they got off the ship, what happened to them?
I don't know.
Because they're not, I mean, it is 1922, so technically speaking, they could kind of vanish without a trace. But somebody somewhere would have said, you know what? My great-grandfather was so-and-so, and he was part of this thing, but he changed his name to this.
Right, but let's take a piece from one of the possibilities here besides mutiny. Okay, so what if it starts off as a mutiny, and those that committed the mutiny get into the life vessel and are swept out to sea and never heard from again?
Exactly.
karma.
Exactly.
Or they get on the other ship. They get on the Hewitt.
And it sinks.
Yep.
I mean, seriously. So who knows?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, they did, on this one thing I watched, they had this company that documents and has all the records of all the maritime accidents, wreckages, all over. Okay. All over the world. Do you know that there are far higher numbers most everywhere else but the Bermuda Triangle?
Of wreckages?
Yes.
Of that condensed of an area?
Yeah.
Wow.
They put out the map, of the world, and then they have like red dots for everywhere, and some are like solid red looking because there's so many dots. And compared to the Bermuda Triangle, I mean, the Triangle doesn't have much.
Yeah.
In comparison to these other maritime disasters and stuff.
But are they including all of the disappearances?
Yeah.
Or just the known wrecks?
I think they're doing the wrecks more than anything. But but the theories are like, there's so many. We could go down a rabbit hole with this, but there's like wormholes. Like there's a guy in 1978 or 79, and he's flying like a little twin engine.
Yep.
Cessna, right? And he he's up in the clouds, he's going through the clouds, and there's like what looks to be like a tunnel in the clouds, and he goes through it, and somehow he loses time. And
he ends up hundreds of nautical miles east of where he should have been.
Yeah.
I have stories about this.
I mean, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then of course, the electromagnetic field.
Yep.
That's the one that it makes your compass go crazy. But what they found is what it does is it really makes your compass point due north.
So you just have to adjust for that.
That's what they're thinking, yes. But I don't know. There's so many of these theories.
That means if you're heading east, your compass is pointing, it says you're heading north.
So it would throw you off, right? A lot.
Throw you off a huge amount, especially.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Especially if you're flying and you're not running GPS.
Exactly like these men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then your compass is showing. Your compass is showing one direction.
Yes.
You look down, all you see is blue. So there's no
help there.
There's no help there. Yeah. You're going to, I need to shift this direction. Oh, wait, no, wait, how are we, and then you don't know where you are.
Yeah. And then you're off course already. But they were also saying that, so on Flight 19, each of those planes, or those 5 squadron planes, had 2 compasses, and 10 between the 5 planes.
Yep.
And they all malfunctioned.
Yeah, that's just not normal.
So that tells you something.
Well, and
crazy.
the fact that the guy had done this before, he has how many
2,500
hours behind him.
Yeah.
Which, that's a lot. So
this was really a different situation for him.
This was just a training.
Yeah. Well, that was the same kind of, the same sort of thing, but the situation was very different because of all the compass malfunction, getting off course.
Yep.
I mean, if you want to put that into perspective, right? 2,500 hours.
Yeah.
There are 2,080 work hours in a year, and people do not fly. They don't fly them 8 hours a day.
No.
So that's a lot of time.
It's crazy.
Right.
Absolutely crazy.
Yeah. That's an experienced individual. If you flew 8 hours every day for
so it was obvious he knew what he was doing in these training exercises, but unfortunately the Triangle had something else
more
in mind. So
well, how many total like accidents and stuff have been reported for the Triangle?
These aren't accidents. These are just disappearances where they never found
anything.
So 50 ships.
That's a lot.
Gone. No trace, no debris, no nothing. 20 planes.
Jeesh.
So 20 planes and
that's a lot.
Hundreds of people. I don't have an exact number on people, but they just say hundreds of people have vanished with no trace. Now, when a body hit, when you die and if you're in the ocean, that water is going to dissolve your bones and everything. So there's not going to be a trace.
Well,
or you sink to the bottom. And
I think there's also another flight.
It dissolves.
I think there's another flight called 447, I believe.
Yeah, there's a handful. Yeah.
And that had like 230 something people on it that died.
Yeah.
Just on one plane.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? That's scary.
Sheesh.
What you doing over there?
I was looking at Flight 447.
Was that it? Was that the flight?
I think it was a flight.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think so. But yeah, it's crazy how much there is and isn't, right? Because you're talking about planes, just 50 ships, 20 planes just gone.
Yeah.
Like you just don't know what happened. And then there's also like 1,600 shipwrecks or
ghost
more.
ships.
Or 1,600 ghost ships. Mm-hmm. And there's
countless wrecks.
There's thousands of wrecks in that area. Yeah. And a lot of it, yes, it is Hurricane Alley. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
So, I mean, these ships are going to get caught in hurricanes. I mean, this was like you look at when the conquistadors were taking gold and stuff out of Mexico and going back to Spain. Guess what? They went through the Triangle, and some of those ships were lost. Yeah, it was a very dangerous area to be traveling through.
It's all them hurricanes.
Well,
hurricanes.
Like I went to for our anniversary, for our honeymoon, we went to Florida, and we were at Universal Studios, and a big wind came through, a tropical storm.
Right.
Came through. And just from the tropical storm alone, like everybody hurried and evacuated, but we were on a ride and an indoor ride, but it was like you're on a boat, kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean thing.
Right.
They got us off the boat and we had to stand in this circle where everybody was huddled together while this rain was pouring through the building onto us while everybody else had escaped the Universal Studios, and we're stuck in this circle waiting for this to pass. And finally, when we're able to leave, nobody is in the park. It's pouring rain, and we were miserable.
Oh, I bet.
So you can imagine, like, we're hearing howling and like thunder, like all of this going on. And for me, I'm just ticked that that I have to spend my honeymoon freezing cold in Florida and
looking like a drowned rat.
But I can imagine being out on that water.
Oh, yeah.
Would be terrifying, especially when you don't have anybody telling you what the weather is, what it's going to be, what the forecast is going to be for the next 7 days.
Yeah,
exactly.
know? 7 to 10 days.
Well,
yeah.
And some of these ships, like, what do they say, 44 feet tall, right? Some of these ships are like, the Daring was 44 feet tall. Well, if you have an 80-foot wave,
twice the height of
twice the height of your ship going over your ship. And a lot of these ships are made to handle those the waves now.
Yeah, not rogue waves,
right?
But yes.
Not rogue waves, but just normal the normal waves. They'll cut through 60, 70 foot, 80 foot waves. Mm-hmm. it's just kind
As
of
long as you don't get hit broadside.
right. And that's when that's where the rogue waves really get you. They'll come from a different direction.
But they believe that the USS Cyclops hit it head on because that's how they simulated it, and it just sunk it.
yeah.
Well, and that's why I think some of these get snapped right in half.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy because we're like, how often do 100-foot waves happen or big waves happen, right? There's actually a tournament or a surfing tournament in Hawaii that only occurs when there are 100-foot waves.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that?
No.
Oh, it's crazy.
They will
That's
surf
no way.
100-foot waves.
Scary as junk.
That's like sliding down a skyscraper.
Nope.
Yeah, no thanks. Before Josh Gates did Expedition Unknown, he did Destination Truth. So this is also on the Discovery Channel, and you can go back and where they do the Bermuda Triangle, and he's much younger in this one, but and it's not as long, of course. It's only like 20 minutes, but he actually goes out in a little boat with a couple of his filming crew, and the boat's, he can't get it to start again. And it's just a little boat with a motor on it.
It's got a little outboard motor.
And it's dark out.
Oh, scary.
It's dark out. And his compass is just, you see it just kind of doing weird
No
stuff.
way.
Yeah.
It's spinning.
And, like a fog rolls in. They lose radio contact with their crew on land for a little bit.
You're like, worst case scenario, we're in it.
Yep. Yep. So, I mean, he eventually gets the boat started, the motor started, but man, I mean, how frightening, because you hear all these stories, you hear all these theories, and then you're out there and the motor won't start and the fog rolls in and your compass is going crazy and your radio isn't transmitting anymore.
But the thing
That
is,
would be tough.
That would be.
they went out again in the water in the same spot and everything worked fine. So that just shows you that
How much it fluctuates.
how much it fluctuates
Yeah.
and that it does it. The one part I'd be interesting to figure out if they ever can figure it out is why the Earth's magnetic field is fluctuating there. And does it happen anywhere else?
Right.
Well, we've covered a story. Remember when we covered the one, I believe, in California, and how in just this one spot on the hills in California, I think I want to say it's in Hollywood,
It was the Manson murders.
but where that one area has a crazy magnetic field.
Right.
Just that one spot.
Right, but that's a consistent crazy magnetic field. The part that's strange about the Bermuda Triangle
Is that it
situation
fluctuates.
is that it constantly fluctuates. And it's funny because we're talking about stories that are in the 1920s, right?
Mm-hmm.
During part of my research, I found one that happened in 1923 last year, 2023.
Yeah.
Plane goes down and disappears.
Yeah.
So it does happen.
It still happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the Expedition Unknown episode, they also go out into the ocean and they actually send up this weather balloon within the Bermuda Triangle. And it goes up to, I think, 100,000 feet, 1,100.
It goes up.
So it goes 1,100.
Yeah, that sounds more realistic.
That's realistic. So it goes way up and it's attached to it. They've just taken like a little styrofoam cooler, but they've put like an EMF detector. They've put like a GPS. They put all these things that are going to measure what's going on up there and track it. And then when the balloon pops,
Yep.
and so they track it with the GPS locator, and they bring it, and then they show you the data
That's cool.
of what they got. So it's like I said, it's worth watching this episode. It's very informative.
It's very good.
Yeah.
So, because they're taking a scientific methodology to it, trying to figure these pieces
Yes.
out.
Which
Yes.
I love. Debunking.
Yes.
Yeah. Debunk what you can.
So, unfortunately, there's way more information, or not information, but there's way more incidents than we've covered now, obviously, of the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, yeah, there's a ton.
So, possibly in a future episode, we'll cover some more.
Yeah. Well, they even had like ties to Lost City of Atlantis,
Ooh,
but they disproved that one.
no.
Bummer.
Well, you mean they looked underneath the triangle? They didn't find a city
Oh,
under there?
geez. No, what it was in the more shallow water. You can see it because they do like an aerial view as well.
Yeah.
But it looks like this big cobblestone pathway.
Yes. Yep.
But what they've discovered, because they did like the ground penetrating radar to see how far these things go down, which helped them determine that this was actually natural. And from like storms and stuff, because they're in shallow water, they've taken on certain shapes that you don't normally see, and this is what made it look man-made, but it wore away the limestone.
That's cool.
So
that's so neat.
Yeah. But the thing is when they were explaining it before they got to, the fact that it was not man-made.
Yeah.
Okay. What I really liked was, how they broke it down. But when you looked at it, I didn't buy it from the beginning because these cobblestones, as they call them, were like
huge,
massive. And I'm like, why would you make a cobblestone road with these massive blocks that are like a small house?
Yeah.
Like that makes no sense.
Cobblestones are, maybe an inch thick.
Yeah. Well, and they were 6 feet, so you could see the tops of them, right? And they're very prominent. But I think it was like either 3 or 6 feet they went under the sand. Like really, you made a cobblestone road with house-sized block. Well, yeah, and you buried them 6 feet.
Yeah.
And then the tops are sticking out like another 3 or 4 feet. I mean, really, no. That makes no sense to me, but...
Because what I did was I went and quarried houses and I just put them into the ground.
So, but yeah, it was definitely worth the watch.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So if you like this episode, please give us a like, please subscribe. And as always, stay ghosty, my peeps.
Dang, dude.
Chunky boy.
That's how Stormy is.
Chunky.
Hi, I'm Ashley, a true crime fanatic.
I'm Dan, and I don't know anything about true crime.
Together, we host Fuck That, a true crime podcast that covers cases that highlight important topics that are often overlooked, such as wrongful convictions, domestic violence, and social inequities, sprinkled in with the occasional case with spooky themes. If you are looking for your next true crime fix delivered candidly with a hint of sarcasm, you can listen and subscribe to bi-weekly episodes of Fuck That wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to give us a follow on Facebook and Twitter at @FThatPod and at @FThat_pod on Instagram.
Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.